Joining us now is writer and broadcaster Esther Krakue. Esther, we understand Harry has dropped his libel case against the Associated Newspapers. Can you tell us what happened and why?
Well, it came as quite a shock, actually, because the day that his legal team was supposed to submit evidence, it was revealed that he was dropping the case against the publishers of the Mail on Sunday for that article that was written in February 2022, which he claims was libelous against him. It was regards to his fight for his armed security with the Home Office. Now, we remember that a few weeks ago, the judge actually ruled that the Associated Newspapers group can actually use the defense of honest opinion moving forward in the trial. But he for some reason has decided to randomly drop the case, and it's alleged that he's going to be footing the bill of about £750,000. So £250,000 of that is actually the legal bill for Associated Newspapers for even going ahead with this sort of court case in the first place, and then the rest of his legal team. We don't understand why. Obviously, he's not dropping the other cases against other newspaper groups for phone hacking and other claims of unlawful information gathering, but he has randomly dropped this case. He's still moving forward with his case against the Home Office to try and reinstate his armed security. He's still keeping on that fight and saying that he is wholly dedicated to trying to protect his family. But for some reason, this libelous case has been dropped. Now, one thing that was interesting that his legal team did claim with this case was that it actually defamed him and it damaged his reputation as an honest person. That's a very interesting claim, and it's interesting that he's not willing to defend that any further, but I suspect it has something to do with the fact that it looked like he wasn't going to win that case and it would have just been a waste of his time and money.
Speaking of money, there must be cost implications of this, and are there any other impacts?
Well, I mean, so far all we know is that the maximum he's likely to pay out for this whole fiasco is about £750,000, which is nothing to scoff at. But for someone like Prince Harry, I suppose is loose change considering all the other sources of revenue that he has. But I think that the bigger issue is the fact that he was unlikely to win the case, and the fact that the judge ruled that the honest opinion defense can go ahead. I think he was advised by his legal team to just drop the case.
Also reported this week are claims that the Queen was angered by Harry and Meghan, calling their daughter Lilibet. Now, how has this come to light now? And are you surprised at all that the Queen was upset about this?
Yeah, so this story is quite an interesting one because obviously the Queen is not alive to speak for herself, but these are claims that have arisen from King Charles's latest biography written by Robert Hardman, stating that the Queen was actually very angry. So apparently, courtiers that were close to the Queen said that she'd been as angry as they'd ever seen her over the fact that Harry and Meghan chose to name their second child, their daughter Lilibet. Now, I suspect it wasn't the fact that they chose that name for their daughter, but I think it was the way that it was done. So immediately after it was revealed that Harry and Meghan's second child was going to be called Lilibet, Harry and Meghan's PR team basically released a statement to the BBC and other media outlets here in the UK that actually that Harry had got explicit consent from the Queen. And the reason why I suspect they put out this statement is because everyone knows that Lilibet is a nickname for the late Queen because she wasn't able to say her name as a child, so she called herself Lilibet. And it's a close nickname that only members of her own family, her husband, her sister, the late Queen, Princess Margaret, used for her. But the problem is the Buckingham Palace refused to corroborate that story, and actually there was a bit of a kind of tension between Harry and Meghan's team and Buckingham Palace because the palace refused to say actually yes, the Queen has given explicit consent. And I think it was the potential fallout from that stressed out the Queen because it's not something that she was interested in dealing with. She wasn't interested in kind of developing a media tit-for-tat for the sake of Harry and Meghan saving face and saying actually the Queen gave her consent. I do suspect though that the Queen may not have necessarily consented in the way that Harry thinks she did. Because we know that the royal family are very traditional, and if she was happy to go ahead with this, or if she was happy for their daughter to have her nickname, which is something that only close friends and family call her, I think there would have been something written there. There would have been written evidence, and Harry and Meghan's team can say, look, the Queen says this is fine. Not that they necessarily have to ask her for permission, because it is a name and she doesn't own the name, but it is, courteous and something that respectful people would do, particularly when you are of the notoriety of the Queen. I don't know if the words that the Queen will allegedly use are accurate. It doesn't sound like very much like her, but it's also quite foreign and unusual to hear direct words from the Queen that she hasn't uttered in a speech or anything like that, because we know that the Queen was very private and she was very discerning in the kinds of things that she said. But I do suspect that it was actually the kind of potential media fallout and the head-to-head between Buckingham Palace and Harry and Meghan's team refusing to corroborate stories and all of that. That's probably what the Queen was unhappy about.